How you doing? My name is Ron Smith. The show you're watching is called Star Talent Showcase.
I have a cutting board. Generally, I do not cut my stuff on paper towels, but we have to be a little resourceful. Because I don't have a cutting board, and I just don't like to peel onions, I actually have shallots here. Shallots are good. I like to use like big Spanish onions when I make this dish. You know, just the big yellow onions. They got a nice hearty flavor. We didn't have any, so we got shallots. I love shallots, so no harm, no foul.
Oh, God.
I like being up here in front of y'all. If I could get the skin off of this, it would make life a whole lot easier. Shallots are a little bit more delicate. They have a milder flavor, but they're really good. I do cook with them a lot. And I'm just going to cut that bottom piece off. Now I'm going to just throw this in the blender. I like to use my food processor at home. I don't like chopping onions, and I'm wearing mascara. So I don't want to sit up here and end up looking like Tammy Faye Baker because my eyes are running. The older folks know Tammy Faye Baker. Some of y'all young people like, and God bless her soul, I like Tammy Faye. She seemed like a great person to go drink with. And so once we get this chopped up, what we're going to do is called what my West Indian elders like to call burning the curry. And what that essentially means is that you're going to heat up your oil. I've got extra virgin olive oil here. A lot of people probably from watching Rachel Ray think you should cook with this. You should not. We'll do with it today. It does not have a very high temperature. It doesn't have a very large capacity for heat. So what happens is while it's very good for you when it's just cold or room temperature, using it for dipping bread or dressing something after it's cooked, when you cook with it, once it gets to a certain level of heat, then like I'm not articulate, but it becomes bad. Like then there's some sort of, it changes the composition of the fat chemicals or whatever. Ask somebody, actually they might know. I don't, but I just know that you shouldn't cook with it. If you're gonna cook with olive oil, you're better off just getting some regular olive oil. The dark kind, just regular olive oil. I'm snob about olive oil. I like to get the best olive oil. It's not necessarily something I mind dropping money on. I'll pay easily $16, $17 for olive oil this size. But olive oil is one of those things that always having a sale. Again, Trader Joe's has a fairly decent generic stock of olive oil, and so that's also a great place to go. Something like this size at Trader Joe's would be about $9. That's really good for olive oil. Okay. I'm not in the way. Okay. I had requested some rice. I like to serve this over a jasmine rice. More often I try to serve it over a brown rice just because I try to intake our what we consume in our house in terms of refined things. I have this little thing that I say, and it's only for food, not for people. If it's white, it ain't right. We don't do white sugar, we don't do white flour, we don't do white rice, okay? And I encourage everyone to sort of stay away from those things. Whole grains, not multi-grain. That is a trick that was created by the food industry. A lot of times they create multi-grain. Some of this multi-grain, that usually means that they refined it, turned around, and put the grains back in it. Just get something that's whole grain. I like to, again, use Trader Joe's whole wheat flour. They have a whole wheat flour. There are a lot of other places. Heckler's makes a great whole wheat flour. You can find that in your local grocery store. You don't have to get fancy. If you just go to your D'Agostino's or your C-Town or your Bravo, if you live in the hood, then you can find, you know, usually a Heckler's or some sort of whole wheat flour. And I'm going to do a shot. generally don't like to use a blender to cut things. Food processors are much better. Blenders are really for liquids, honestly. If you need to chop something, you're better off using a food processor. And lots of places now do blenders and food processors in one. You just swap out the container here. I encourage that if you are a die-hard culinary person, Vitamix. Vitamix will change your life. It's expensive, but
Worth it.
it's a great investment. So if you can get your coins together, you can make a request for Christmas, your birthday, Valentine's Day, then yes, I like cooking products on Valentine's Day. I'm that kind of woman. Is this on already? No. So let's get that going. So we're gonna heat up our olive oil. You don't want it to get to smoking. If it's gotten to smoking, you want to start over. And just a little bit, maybe. I'm not afraid of olive oil. I like it. It's probably one of the most used oils in my house. We do like butter too. I know butter gets a bad rap, but use sparingly. Butter has a lot of nutritional properties as well. Sparingly, however, is the key.
Since you don't like cooking with olive oil, what is a good oil to cook with?
No, olive oil is a good oil to cook with, not extra virgin.
Okay.
So you've got like, right, so regular olive oil is better. Extra virgin is just very gentle. It's very delicate, and it's really to be used like dipping, used to put on after you cook. Right, so this is what we have today, so I'll use it, but I didn't want to give you that information. But in terms of other oils that you like, again, I'll go back to my children. You know, I like to pop popcorn on the stove. I don't like it in the microwave. I think it's gross. I think I like safflower oil for popcorns and things like that. In the rare cases that I do fry things, I am a black woman from a southern background. I make a mean fried chicken. I like peanut oil. But most of the time, in most things, I feel like olive oil, if you're going to saute, is a great choice. I try to stay away from vegetable oils. Corn oils a no-no in my house. I haven't found anything that I can't use some sort of alternative oil for. I like peanut oils, sunflower oils. It's really all about what you're cooking, and as you really start to get comfortable in your kitchen, you'll figure out which oils are better for other things. Sauteing, I'm almost exclusively olive oil. On occasion, I will throw a tablespoon to a butter in for flavor. I do not use margarine. Don't. If you've got to use margarine because you're better off using butter. I'm really staunchly opposed to it. And if you don't want to use butter, then again, use some sort of, one great thing too, like for sauteing, is coconut oil. And let me tell you something about coconut oil. I will saute with that bad boy and then use it on my skin later that night. It is very versatile, okay? Grease my scalp. My sisters know what I'm talking about. So I've got my shallots here. I'm gonna wait for this to sort of heat up. And then I'm gonna saute this with some minced garlic. And once it starts to get a little brown, then you're gonna add your curry. You're not gonna add your curry later, you're gonna add your curry then. It's called burning the curry, okay? And the reason that you do that is one, that it's very fragrant, it smells really good, and it's gonna get all in there. So when you put your curry in there, you put your vegetable oil in there, it's gonna really bring out the flavor of the curry, so that it's gonna really resonate better in your dish. You're gonna taste it much more richly than if you waited to put the curry in afterwards. And so for a lot of the West Indian dishes I make, whether it be curry chicken, curry chickpea, curry vegetables, I burn my curry first, and then later at the end when I'm tasting, I figure out whether or not I want to add a little bit of curry later. Tomato place up here? Well, not quite there. And you want to really make sure that your oil is nice and hot when you start, because like this, it's not quite yet, and then what happens is your vegetables get a little bit too soggy. Try to get all of these shallots out of here. I hope I don't cut myself.
I use my little chopper. You can chop it by hand.
Generally, I like to put my rice on in the beginning, I like to use brown rice. If you are making the switch, you're not really used to the taste of brown rice yet, you have children you're trying to transition into it, a little tip that I like to do is a half and half. Did the same thing with pasta. Now we exclusively go whole wheat pasta, but by the time I had my third child and I was really changing my eating habits and really transitioning into much more of a whole grain and plant-based diet, my older girls were like, what is this hard stuff that you're feeding us? I remember the first time I gave them multi-grain bread, or rather like 7-grain bread, my daughter said, Mommy, I don't want the bread with the dirt in it. And I said, that's not dirt, honey, that's grains, it's good stuff. I don't want that. So in terms of that, I would do like maybe 1 cup of brown rice every 2 cups of white rice, and then just start to oh, thank you, wonderful, so fantastic. Just move it up, just continually until they get cooking. Really, a lot of this too in our community when we're talking about healthy eating, a lot of it is also palate education. I know that sounds very elitist, sort of highbrow, but it's true. My dad got hypertension when I was 13. Before that, we ate everything out of a can. I liked my green bean salad. The first time he gave me frozen green beans, or fresh green beans, I was like, oh, hell no, I don't want this. Why is this so crunchy? Why does this taste so green? And so we also want to do that in our homes and in our communities. If you are a community chef, or you do a lot of cooking demos in your own community, think about these things. One thing I always tell people is meet folks where they're at. Don't run all the way to 125th Street. She back there on 96th Street. You're trying to yell her to get her to come and meet you. Go to 96th Street and y'all hold hands and walk together. You've got to meet folks where they are. And so understand and really respect what people's food choices are. Don't judge them. I hate using bad food, good food. It's very loaded terms. It gives people shame around food, and then you cut them off. They don't want to talk about it anymore. Okay? And so it's all about thinking about really inventive ways to introduce things to people so that, we can really start talking about healthier food choices. Not good or bad. I like ice cream sundae. I see the ice cream folks over there. I'm going to go see them before I leave. It's all about just making sure we have balance in our life. I clearly have been working on this size 18 body. It's a work in progress, And, but I want to be balanced. I want to make sure that as I get older, I'm not tapping into those things that are already in my genetic DNA, like diabetes, like hypertension. I want to make sure that my children, I'm passing on good things to them, not things like obesity, right, and emotional eating. So this seems like it's getting really hot here. I see some heat. So I'm going to go ahead and add, I like a lot of garlic. You have to forgive me if you don't. You may not want the samples afterwards, but I just think garlic is fantastic. A lot of medicinal properties. Really is good for your immune system. If you have a cold or something like that, I like to get some tea and steep it with some cloves of garlic, and you add some honey and some ginger. It really opens. I suffer from sinuses and respiratory issues living in the South Bronx, and that's one of those things that really helps me. So, when I was pregnant with my children, I would get up every morning and eat cloves of garlic. When I cook, I put garlic in everything. I put it in eggs, I put it in home fries, I put it in all of my food, and I use it very, very, very generously. My opinion, garlic is God's gift to us. And then, another thing I'm a fan of is ginger. I personally like fresh ginger. I really do. I keep ginger root in my house all the time. I think it's one of the things it's very affordable. Again, that is one of the things you can get from Trader Joe's. You can get it from if you live in an ethnic community, it is available at your local bodega. I live in a very Latin community. I can always get potatoes, yuca, and ginger at the bodega, right after I scoop the cat off the vegetable box. Yes. Okay. Sure. So now we've really got this going. We got some heat going. Ginger is one of those things that burns very quickly, so you want to put it at the other end. If you're going to use fresh ginger, what I like to do is get one of those handheld graters, like the ones you use for Parmesan cheese, and just grate it. You won't see it fall. You have to turn it over and sort of scoop it off the back and sort of add it in there at the end. So I add my ginger. I'm going to add my ginger. Again, ginger is one of those. Be careful with ginger. I like it, but if you add too much, it can be very, very strong. When I make my juices, I do like to use a lot of ginger. I like it very gingery. But for this, you want it to be a little bit more subtle. Ground ginger is fine. I don't know if there's any difference between, in my opinion, in terms of taste, using ground ginger versus fresh ginger. I prefer fresh, but if you're someone who's like, I'm not going to sit here and peel this and grate it, ground ginger's fine. And so you want to get that nice and fragrant, and when it starts to get like brown, then you want to start to add your curry. I'm going to agree with the folks that came before me. If you really are sort of snobby about your spices and stuff, you know, curry is basically like turmeric, paprika, cumin. So if you have those things on hand, you can do it yourself. If not, if you want to take a trip to some of the places in Queens, Jackson Heights, you know, where there's a large Indian community, and curries come in different arrays. You got your red curry, your green curry, curry paste, brown curry. Love curry. We eat lots of curry in my house. And so take a trip to Queens. A lot of those like really large, they're not bodegas, but they're not supermarkets. They're almost like produce markets, you know, where they have the vegetables sort of out and you can get 3 different types of eggplants, etc., etc. They will have curry. I'm a big fan of chief curry that is packaged. That's mainly like a very sort of West Indian or Trinidadian, Jamaican curry, and less sort of East Indian, but I really do like it. If you like a more East Indian taste, there are also different curries, but I happen to like chief. It comes in a very simple plastic package. It's got a picture of a first American or an indigenous American on the front, and it's called chief. And it's usually about, oh, it's starting to smell really good. It's usually about $6 or $7, depending on the size of the bag. You can get it much bigger, $12, $13, but it's very strong, so you don't need a lot of it. It lasts a long time. I bought some maybe 3 months ago, and I'm just now needing another bag of it. If you live in Brooklyn or you live in North Bronx, I like to take trips into the North Bronx. I live in the Bronx. If you go to like the roti shops, how many folks here eat West Indian food? Really good. If you haven't, get my card. I'll take you out on a date. I'll take you to some of the places in my hood. Ali's roti shop, places like that. You can go in and you get your pilori, you get your doubles, you get the roti, and then you can also buy yourself a bag of cheese. I call that multitasking. So, I like curry. I like to add a lot of curry. Some people are not such big fans. They don't like strong curry smell. Can you guys smell that? Give it a minute. You start to... Yeah, you see the difference, how that smells when you start to burn the curry. And you're not literally burning it. You're just sort of cooking it. And with certain spices, you do want to do that. You want to mix it with your oils. It's much more fragrant. It gives your dish a much heartier taste. So once you've got that going, then you want to add your vegetable broth. Your vegetable broth or your chicken stock, that is your base. This is, I find Trader Joe's, again, very good for vegetable broth. All of their broths are organic. This is a very colorful one. The first time for everything. I'm not judging. Get that in the dress. Okay, can't walk around here looking crazy. Okay, so you want to add this, and you want to get that going. Now I have sweet potatoes there. I didn't add that. Sweet potatoes give you a nice hearty flavor. You can certainly use baby potatoes or white potatoes. Once again, thinking about nutritional value, sweet potatoes have great nutritional value, not full of as many of the starches that are going to keep the weight on you or turn into sort of stored sugar, which then turn into stored fat. So sweet potatoes are good. You're going to want to put those in with your chickpeas because sweet potatoes take longer to get soft than your white potatoes. I'm not going to add them, but I did want to bring them so you can see them. These are a little bit smaller. You can buy them loose. Again, I'm not a big fan of packaging vegetables. I like to go to my local grocery store. I get maybe 1 or 2 sweet potatoes. They're huge. Do not call these yams. I want to give y'all a little education. Yams and sweet potatoes are different. I don't know where that misnomer came from. If you go to Africa where yams are indigenous, they do not look like this. They are white. I had a West Indian boyfriend one time, and I gave him yams. He said, these are not yams. So that's where I learned that, okay? Those are sweet potatoes. Yams are white. So once that starts to get going, you want to add your chickpea. And I'll let everyone, this is is not going to cook down in time. I like mine, like the gentleman before me, I do like to use an immersion blender or a potato masher and mash them up and then leave some of them whole. So I'll cook these down and then later I'll add the next half. This takes about 25 minutes or so. Some people do like their chickpeas firm. I like mine a little bit softer. I like to get like a little stewy. And so I'll cook half and then about 10-15 minutes later I'll start to mash them in and then I'll add the other half. And what that does is it gives it a really nice thickness. And if you see already, you know, there's already a thickness to it. If you're using canned chickpeas, do not use the juice that's in there. Canned chickpeas tend to have very tinny flavor. I recommend washing them before you use them. Put them in a colander and just give them a good wash off. Not too much though, because then what happens is you take the skin off of the chickpeas, and that's one of the things that's going to give you that thickness when you mash them down. Is that like sort of like a translucent shell on the outside. And then once that really gets going is when you want to add your coconut milk. Now coconut milk, 1 can, goes a very long way. For this dish here, I wouldn't even use a whole can. One of the things about coconut milk too, don't ever store things in cans in your refrigerator. You will get sick and it just tastes terrible when you go to use it later. I am a big fan of jars. I never throw any jars out. We drink out of them, we use them later. I'm a little bit of a sort of a semi-hippie environmental pack rat kind of person. I don't like to throw those things out. And so put something in a plastic or container or jar if you don't use the whole can. Stick it in your freezer. Once again, I like ice trays. Put them in your ice trays when you need them. You pop out a couple cubes and you use it with whatever dish. If the dish is already hot, you don't have to worry about throwing it out. Just throw it right in there. And so then I like to sort of just add that. And it gives it sort of this really nice creamy color. I love the color when you add coconut milk to anything. I'm also a big fan of coconut milk. And there's like the canned coconut milk that I like to cook and bake with. And then you have actual sort of coconut milk that you can use in your cereal as a replacement. It doesn't have as long as a shelf life. You usually buy it cold next to your soy and your vanilla milk. Your soy and your almond milks. And that's really wonderful for other things. My kids, because they have respiratory issues, exposed to environmental hazards in the South Bronx, we don't do a lot of dairy in our house. I love dairy. I'm a big cheese eater. I'm a big milk. But in terms of like if you've got a kid that's asthmatic, lots of allergies, you're going to start to get lots of phlegm, a lot of mucus, you know, these types of things that are going to make it a lot harder for them to breathe and then become triggers for them ending up on a nebulizer in some local hospital. And so I also say to people, be careful with soy. Soy is one of those things that we thought was really great a couple years ago. Still has some really great properties, but it's put in everything. Our exposure to it is a lot like corn. And so that's having some biological impacts on us. I love almond milk. I love coconut milk. Those things are really great. They're very safe. They have a lot of medicinal properties to them, and you can consume them. I mean, again, moderation is everything. And then sort of at the end, then you want to add our little green lantern chips here. As my son likes to call them. And so you get that in there, you get that cooking. And sort of once, you know, you want to put those in last. Once your potatoes have gotten to the softness that you prefer, I like my potatoes to like completely break apart. Some people like them with a little firmness. Again, I like for this to come out a little bit more like a stew, and then we sort of just spoon it over a cup of rice or something like that. And then I'm going to add my sea salt. I'm wrapping up now. I'm going to add my sea salt. I love grinders. I don't know if it's therapeutic for me. I don't know if I have some sort of kinky thing going on with this action here. I really love a grinder. So I like my sea salt in a grinder. I use different types of sea salts. I have some that are coarse, some that are fine. I have some in grinders. If you're using a grinder, I usually don't like sea salt grinders for when I'm going to use salt on my food afterwards. It doesn't break down as well and you can feel yourself chewing up the salt. So I'm not a big fan of that. I like to use a very fine sea salt in place of a table salt. I cannot tell you how much better grinded pepper tastes than the stuff you already get in the can grinded for you. Again, Trader Joe's, I think they should start giving me a commission. I think I'm going to send them this video. We should start talking about some sort of kickback here. But they, again, because these things can get a little pricey, if you live in certain communities, then sometimes it's not even available to you. You'll go in and you won't be able to find sea salt in a grinder. It depends. But what is happening here with this? Oh, there we go. But I just think that grinded pepper just has a better flavor. I think it's just better to grind the peppercorn when you're getting ready to use it versus sitting and having it in your pantry or your cabinet for a month, 2, 3 months at a time. And it doesn't taste like anything. So with this, you don't necessarily need a whole lot, just a couple turns, and then there you are. And
Hey, how you doing? Listen, this is Ron Smith. I am here at the Green Festival today, here at the Jacob K. Jarvis Convention Center, right here in New York, Manhattan. Listen, it was a great time. We had a great show. We heard from some speakers. They were fantastic. Look, tune in. Next week, we're going to be having an amazing show coming up for you. Can't tell you much about it, but you're going to enjoy it. This is Ron Smith, Star Talent Showcase, signing off. Take care, peace, and blessings.